We're going to do this.
Yeah, so let's start first with David Pakman. We got some bad news from David. Apparently we got the text from Pakman.
No.
It's like, guys, we need to talk. And here's what David Pakman has to say.
Have not changed in terms of my views. What has changed, as I pointed out yesterday, is I no longer believe we are all part of the same movement. There's the governance-focused, big tent, win elections and pass laws left.
I wonder which side he's on.
Win elections?
Yeah,
See, that's the problem.
Can we get that photograph of him with fucking Mr. Biden and all of those freaks after they lost the easily winnable election against one of the most unpopular and dangerous figures in recent American history?
The win elections thing, David, is actually the real problem from a practical sense. Like morally, it's abhorrent. Like your position on Gaza and all sorts of these foreign policy issues in particular. But if Kamala had won that election, like we were saying before, like it's going to be a huge difficulty too, because they are going to feel vindicated about supporting a genocide that David Pakman doesn't report upon, running with the Cheneys. Like, it would have been a trouble.
Let's actually be really clear. I mean, it's kind of crazy, but we almost have to remind people about the Kamala Harris campaign. They wanted to do two major things. They wanted to be able to excise people who thought that incinerating mothers and children in the streets of Gaza, people who opposed that, they wanted to have those people marginalized or out of the tent completely. And also, Kamala Harris's campaign very much was geared around the idea that, hey, maybe we don't have to deal with these pesky working class voters anymore. Maybe we have seen enough of a realignment of the rich, of the upper middle class to the ruling class in this country that we don't have to deal with these pesky working people anymore. Turns out they were wrong about that on both counts.
And so while you're out here losing 2 elections to Donald Trump, I mean, people with our politics are ascendant.
Yeah.
Or even James Tallarico is talking about like the top versus bottom. I mean, we'll see. We'll see if
but totally they have to mirror. They have to pick up that kind of language. 100%.
Yes. So here's Pakman talking about some fantasy Democrat that doesn't exist anymore.
What has changed, as I pointed out yesterday, is I no longer believe we are all part of the same movement. There's the governance-focused, big tent, win elections.
And the ones who take money from those people as well.
Is Big Tent the folks not endorsing Zoran?
We're never going to get through this video, but yeah, 100%. We got to let it go. I'm sorry.
And win elections and pass laws left. That's where I am. And then there's this purity test left. The ones who don't really care if we lose and sometimes seem to like it so they can say, I told you so, as long as they feel morally untainted. They treat compromise.
And that is also what the Kamala Harris people are doing throughout this, which some of them have learned better. But a lot of these people that took money, like, what's his name? Too Raw, Too Real.
Yeah.
The one time he got around to tweeting about Palestine was to do this, see how bad Trump is, talking about the Gaza Riviera. Kamala Harris wouldn't do that. Kamala Harris could speak up for herself. She's ducking the issue entirely because she don't believe it. Actually, to the extent that we have heard Kamala Harris weigh in on this stuff at all, it has been to say that my niece who supported Zoran, or maybe it was daughter or whatever, who I can't remember who it was. It's for Zoran. Thanks, stepdaughter, that she liked Zoran on Instagram shouldn't reflect on me.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and they feel pretty happy with that purity. You want to talk about purity? How about no Palestinians, no pro-Palestine speakers at the DNC at all?
But also, like, this whole purity, this is stupid. Remember the ContraPoints thing? First of all, rhetorically, these are silly, right? When you say, like, I'm on the side that's serious, and my opponents are on the side that is silly and wrong and bad, right? It's like, okay, that's not particularly impressive. But, like, let's kind of take this for what it is. And, like, I actually agree with Pakman. Like, we're not in the same movement. Because in my movement, we articulate our values, and our values are things like on the question of Gaza, 100% in favor of supporting human rights and basic decency and opposing the genocidal Zionist state that this motherfucker defended from the goddamn get-go. But I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole because we'll never get to the second point, which is that the other things that I am engaged in politics for are things that I support as well, wholeheartedly. Medicare for all, higher minimum wage, pushing and growing the power of unions in this country. These are things that are heavily opposed by many members of this quote unquote Big Ten that Pakman is saying that he's in, right? And look, you can call it a Big Ten all you want, but that 10 is getting smaller and smaller and smaller, friend. We,
Yeah.
on the other side, aren't saying, oh, we're doing purity testing and I'm engaged in politics because I want to feel good or I want to feel a certain way. I am engaged in politics because I want the ideas and the things that I support to win. And guess what? Supporting the friends of the ruling class, supporting the friends of Uber, supporting the friends of genocidal maniacs does not amplify or build up my politics. So yeah, guess what? I don't support those folks. I support the people who want to fight for the things that I believe in. That's why I'm engaged in politics. And now you can say that I lost or I lose or all this kind of stuff, but you can't say that we're engaged in this for like a certain sense of moral feeling. I'm engaged in this kind of thing to win. And you taking a bunch of money from freaks to tell them that everything that they're doing is good and great and grand. It's not helping your side win, right? You're
Yep.
doing that for something even worse than feeling good. You're doing that to fucking line your pockets, asshole. So spare me the bullshit about like moralism and this is about how people feel. I sleep very well at night because I know that I come out and I speak to my audience and I speak to as many people as I can about the ideas in the world that I want to live in, and I articulate it and I fight for it. And I hope that that movement continues to grow and build because my movement is ascendant and winning. Your movement is not only losing, it's creating the conditions for the far right. It's creating the conditions for the genocide, which I guess, who knows if that's a problem or not, or if you want to believe the numbers or you want to question if this hospital was really bombed or whatever, friend. It's just spare me this bullshit.
I mean, we'll get to this. This motherfucker was in the White House to talk to Kamala Harris ahead of the campaign, and he didn't say a fucking word about, hey. I mean, we'll have to get to that. Let's get to the rest of this breakup thing before we get to the blood on his hands, which I think
God damn it, I'm sorry.
media has a responsibility when there's a fucking genocide going on.
Yes.
And it sickens me what Pakman's done over
And who
the
knows? I
past
mean, look,
couple
this
years.
guy probably was doing, especially, at the get-go, pro bono for the child killer. Cool.
But well, he gets a picture out of it of him talking in the White House with Kamala Harris at the table. That's promo. David Pakman knows what that is. I'm going to get views out of that.
Left. That's where I am. And then there's this purity test left. The ones who don't really care if we lose and sometimes seem to like it so they can say, I told you so, as long as they feel morally untainted. They treat compromise as corruption. They think we need a better media ecosystem must mean install CIA-approved thought leaders or something like that. So maybe we were never
CIA approved.
What is going on?
Democrat. I mean, this is Pakman.
It's crazy.
Which is what he did.
It is
This is what he
crazy.
did.
Sorry, go ahead, Matt.
This is what he did with the Wired thing, which is not address anything that Taylor Lorenz and Wired had published, but to say, and then these other people out here are taking that reporting and saying, I work for AIPAC. This is slimy, disgusting
100%.
behavior.
red-pilled about anything, maybe it's that. We overlapped when convenient, and that was it. But I'm not
Oh, let me make sure we get that red pill comment there. It's a little bit glitch.
mean install CIA-approved thought leaders or something like that. So maybe we were never really part of the same movement. If I've been red-pilled about anything, maybe it's that. We overlapped when convenient, and that was it. But I'm not getting red-pilled. I'm done pretending that everyone with a left-wing label is on the same page. You can stand for progress in a lot of different ways. You can want change without torching everyone who's only 98% on your side.
Yeah, there we go.
But no, I am not having a political awakening. I am not the next Dave Rubin. None of that is happening.
No, I mean,
that lane's
why?
full.
Well, he doesn't need to. He doesn't need to switch parties. He's getting money to do what he's doing from nefarious or secretive
Shadowy.
or quiet, shadowy, dark. He's getting money for it. He's getting meetings in the White House, and this whole thing about the CIA. Oh, this conspiracy. This conspiracy. If you consider yourself a journalist and you are working with people who are involved with the major political parties in your country, you're not doing the work of a journalist, let alone an independent journalist. And it's just as simple as that. Now, if you want to be a spokesperson for the Kamala Harris campaign or the Joe Biden campaign or the state of Israel, you're free to do that.
Yep.
That is
No-
like
Well, here is John Ross, who I think is good color for what David Pakman just said here. Who is a former David Pakman producer, and he spoke with Current Affairs here. And what he had to say, I found very interesting.
It absolutely is deliberate. I actually have an email from him after he visited the White House last year on the day of Joe Biden's State of the Union address. He was invited to a private off-the-record meeting with Kamala Harris and several other content creators, including Brian Tyler Cohen, the Mycelis brothers from Midas Touch, and he told me that they all sort of talked amongst themselves at the White House, not in like an official capacity during the meeting, but, just casually as colleagues amongst themselves. And they talked about what their editorial stance is on Gaza. And he told me in an email that they talked amongst themselves and came to the conclusion that the topic is too divisive, it might drag down their channels, that it's a poison pill, and that it's better if they just don't talk about it at all. Now, Brian Tyler Cohen literally has never done anything on Gaza. Beyond that, during the 2020 primary, even though he was regularly putting out videos covering news and politics, never once mentioned Bernie Sanders during the 2020 primary. And we see today with this rise of Zoran Mamdani, has Brian Tyler Cohen covered him? No, not at all. So I would suggest that, yes, there absolutely is suppression on Gaza, but there also goes beyond that into like a broader shutting down of leftist issues. If you are a content creator and you have a platform of 3 million, 4 million people, and it's your job to analyze news and politics for a living, and yet you don't ever mention Gaza, it's like, I just don't understand how you would be able to sleep with yourself at night. I certainly wasn't able to when I worked for him. To be honest, I sort of feel like I have blood on my hands, or it's like he has this audience of 3 million people who are, broadly moderate, centristy, liberal types who, theoretically, if they did hear about what was happening there, then, they might have been more critical of Biden. There might have been potential to pressure him and change his policy on it. But because it was shut out entirely, it became much less present in the public discourse around a certain type of person who isn't getting their news from actual journalists, but paid shills for the Democratic Party.
I found that very moving, of his guilt about working for Pakman, slipping through, and shame on Pakman and all of those guys. Brian Tyler Cohen, Midas Touch, who we will be giving more attention to going forward. Shame on all of them for genocide support with their platforms, with looking at an issue and deciding you were going to lose money on it. Are you fucking kidding me?
it's disgusting.
That is disgusting.
But that's pretty much what Pakman is saying there too. You know what I mean? Like, it is so crazy to use these kind of terms of like winning, or I mean, in the most cynical side, like, oh, this is poison for our channel, But to use all these kind of moralistic terms when at the end of the day, what you're afraid of, and as you're getting at, Matt, is money. You want to make sure that you get more, and that you get to protect what you got. And when it's something as stark as the burning of children alive, mothers wandering around looking for their kids, right? That's something that you're okay with being silent on because it helps your wallet. And then also, you don't want to hurt the people responsible for it, the Biden administration, the Kamala Harris campaign. Whew. That is really low, man. That is probably as low as it can get. When you think about what the kind of scandals and you can fuck up in political media, right? You can do a story that's wrong. You can say something wrong. You can get into trouble for this or that opinion. But man, running cover for the mass slaughter of other human beings is probably one of the most despicable and lowest things that you can do in this line of work.
It's endemic, and part of the reason I felt, before October 7th, I had been thinking like I'm going to cool it on Twitter a little bit, reel it in, mature, but I don't when it comes to Israel Palestine now, and it's in large part because I'm insulated from a lot of the negative effects that, frankly, most of the people employed in this business have, which is that, like that kid, if John Ross started tweeting out Gaza stuff, how long do you think Pakman's going to keep him employed if he's going to insist on this sort of stuff? And this is across media. And for Pakman to use a label like independent as some sort of fucking marketing label, because all of a sudden we can get more money in the door now because it's more valuable than, say, CNN is or whatever. Like it's gross, and this is a weight on the entire like knowledge producing community is this fucking Zionism shit, which is you can't say what's going on despite abundant evidence. 2 years into it, evidence that, frankly, look, talk about not changing your opinions. You can go back and look what I said on Ben Burgess's show October 8th. And I'm fairly proud of what I said. David Pakman was surprised that Israel would continue to bomb hospitals after getting on Rashida Tlaib, claiming that she didn't know what she was talking about. It was David Pakman.
He thought he was going to get the best boy in independent media award for that, right? Because this is just me watching from the outside. This is just like how I view somebody like that. When your reaction to first of all, if you know anything about Israel and you know anything about Palestine, you've been following this issue, almost all of us knew the moment that this started that it was going to be a horror show because Israel had done way worse. Had already done horrible things, had already responded throughout its history, with overwhelming force, disproportionate force, right? So if you follow this at all, like and so he knows 100%. And then if basically your position on these kind of things is that, like, I want to be the one, I want to look and see if anybody else makes a mistake in their coverage, like goes too far in protecting the stateless people, goes too far in defending the poor. That's an orientation that I think betrays a lot about that person's psyche. It's not good. Matt, you're completely quiet.
It's what Ethan Klein has been basically doing, going after Palestinian creators. This sort of disclaimer that, oh no, I actually hate Netanyahu and I'm not a Zionist, but look at all these people going a little bit too far criticizing Israel. You're not fooling fucking anyone. And Pakman's just a little bit too savvy to think he can get away with it, which is why he decided just to stop talking about
it at all. Incredible, by the way.
I mean, abject cowardice. And I would shout out Nathan Robinson and Taylor Renz for having that producer on, because it really shows
him in. I could be incorrect about this, but I think that they brought them into current affairs.
That's awesome, because it really shows the hollowness of this whole thing of David Pakman being like, I thought I was on one side. Your producers thought that you were on the side of not supporting genocide, David, and they were wrong. And now they feel like they have blood on your hands. Do you have a response to that? If we employed somebody on Left Reckoning, and years later they were saying, I feel like I have blood on my hands because of an editorial line that David and Matt held me to.
Yeah,
I would address that one way or the other.
Yeah.
Like instead, it's
No, he
just
said he's
this
going to do stupid
broadside against the
clickbaity
left.
bullshit about like maybe
Yeah.
I'll sue, maybe I'll sue, maybe I'll sue. I hate that I share a name with that freak. You've had to carry that cross a few times, so
Yeah, there's
I
plenty of
guess I
Matts
have
out there.
Ruben too, but whatever.
True about Matt Taibbi.
Yeah, but we'll keep our eye. We're going to keep our eye on. Actually, Matt's right. We're going to try to do a little bit more on that Brian Tyler Cohen figure and whatever. But just despicable folks and 100% vindicated and not trusting that motherfucker from the get go. I'm glad we pretty much started with Pakman the second we launched Left Reckoning, to be honest, too.
Yeah, but the fucking gall to say we're on the side of winners. No, you lose.
Yeah, you're losers.
That's actually the most one of the most urgent problems right now.